Hello, everyone. We are back finally for another episode of Between Two Sites. Um, Unfortunately, we had a lot of tech issues with sound, and as much as I tried to edit it and get everybody's vocals in and clear, it was just too much. It was too razzled or whatever, and you wouldn't be able to hear anyone. So we're back again to try and you know. Get a podcast going. So we're going to have some new topics, obviously, because it's been some time. But before we get into that, I want to introduce everyone. Of course, I'm Kenneth Seward Jr. from United Front Gaming. With me is my co-host. Go ahead and introduce yourself, co-host.
Hey, I'm Elon Herbert from NZ Gamer.
Awesome. And we have a special guest. Matt, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, I am Matt Paprocki. I am with DoBlue.com and GameSkinny.com and an assortment of others, whoever will pay me.
Awesome. And I also want to put a plug in here. Go and read Matt's movie reviews. Has some awesome stuff. I saw your review of the Halo movie recently. The
Nightfall.
Nightfall. Good stuff. Good stuff. Definitely
Thank you,
check
sir.
that out. So first, we want to talk about something that we've been kind of talking about over Twitter for a little while, is whether or not a person who is, let's see, how do I say this? If you dislike a genre of a game, let's say first-person shooters, should you be allowed to review the game? I don't mean allowed like someone's going to come and just take your Xbox away and be like, you can't review it. I mean, like, as an editor, would it make sense for me to give you Call of Duty to review if you just hate first-person shooters or you hate Call of Duty? Is that would that be a fair review? And so that was something that we kind of like was going back and forth on, mainly because a lot of the big games, like the Grand Theft Autos and The Last of Us, and just recently, even though it's a kind of a smaller game, Axiom Verge, they pretty much had the same score. It was basically praised by everyone. I think there might have been a little, some people might not have liked it as much as others, but for the most part, everyone liked it. And I know, Matt, you were saying that there wasn't much dialogue there because everyone was coming from the same place of playing, Metroid and Castlevania and kind of being enamored with that particular, that type of genre. And so it wasn't really much room for any negative feedback. I guess that's where you're coming from.
Yeah.
So I'll let you explain that.
Axiom Verge is a tough one because I loved Axiom Verge as well. A lot of people loved Axiom Verge, but the people who reviewed Axiom Verge all came at it from the same direction. No one really looked at Axiom Verge in any other different way other than it's a really good Metroidvania game. I don't like the term, but I'm using it here because it's broad and it's easy. Everyone who got that game to review it was probably excited for it, probably read the previews and was amped up and said, yeah, I'll totally take that game on and I'll totally review it. That's really boring. You look at a case, and I'm going to take Nintendo games because Nintendo games are almost unanimous. Anything first-party Nintendo from a major franchise is almost guaranteed to get high marks across the board. Zelda, Mario, Mario Kart, Smash Brothers, etc. So you're giving it to your main Smash Brothers guy. We're going to take Smash Brothers, who's going to review and say, oh my god, it's the best Smash Brothers game ever. I was Sonic and I punched Mario off the stage and it was the greatest thing ever. And it's like, okay, that's not interesting because the other 47 people on Metacritic all said the same exact thing. Whereas if you look at Smash Brothers, as I'm not a fan of Smash Brothers, it's just this giant puppet show with a bunch of corporate characters, kind of like a cartoon smash-up thrown together. It's not interesting to me. And it's interesting that people just go nutso for Smash Brothers to me. I like the perspective that people like Smash Brothers, but it doesn't really work on me. It doesn't work on me because I don't like the fighting. It doesn't work on me because I don't like the options provided. It doesn't work on me because it's just like this very boring corporate, very safe product. And that's all it's ever been to me.
So let me ask you a question then. Considering that's your stance, it's not a game series that interests you. Are you interested in reading reviews about it?
I did, and I read a vast majority of them,
But
especially
that's
from the major
now.
sites.
Now, is that because you're in the industry a bit more? You write it reviews, so you're more because that's the thing. I'm trying because I don't see the logic in that. If it's a game series that you're not interested in, you don't like, and this isn't going to be that different from the rest of them. Why are you even reading the reviews?
Because yeah, I'm in the industry, and it's my main
Cool.
job.
All right,
I,
cool. So you guys, so for the average reader, then though, they're probably not going to read the reviews if they're not interested in the series. In which case, why get someone to write for that audience when that audience isn't going to come to read?
okay, let's take South Park: Stick of Truth.
Ah,
I
good example.
okay, I
Is
don't
it?
like RPGs. I do not
Okay.
like turn-based RPGs, but I love South Park.
Yeah.
So if you give that game to someone like me, they're going to look at it as a South Park product and not as an RPG product, which is how I reviewed it because I don't
Mhm.
like turn-based RPGs. So that's helpful to me. Now maybe okay, I don't like Mario Kart. Mario Kart's another one that's never really done much for me. But Sonic and All Stars Racing is fantastic to me. I love Sonic and All Stars Racing, but it's a Mario Kart clone. So if you give it to someone who doesn't like Mario Kart, but they like Sonic, it means a lot more to me coming from someone who doesn't generally like those types of things to say, hey, this is really good, even if you don't like it.
Can
But
I just ask
also,
something? Why? What? Genuinely asking for that game, for the Sonic game, why was it good if it was basically just a Mario Kart clone and you don't like Mario Kart? What? What? How is it different that you enjoyed it, or was it just because it has a Sonic skin instead of a Mario skin?
not at all. Sonic All Stars, and the first one. I didn't actually like the second one. The
Okay.
first one had way more energy than Mario Kart. It had a speed and an attitude about it, which sounds corny coming from Sonic because everyone says that about Sonic, but that's just what it had. Mario Kart is so
Hmm.
safe and so slow and slow blase. I know they just added the 200cc circuit to Mario Kart, but it
Hmm.
just doesn't have any energy to it. It's the same game it's always been. All Stars comes in, and all of a sudden, I mean, you're drifting, you're using items in a different way, and it really felt fair to me. Whereas Mario Kart is, oh, you got that item, great, you win.
I
And
find,
I've
Right.
never
Right.
liked that about that. That's why I've never cared for Mario Kart. It's a fun game. I love the worlds. I love the tracks. I love all that. I just never thought it was fair, and because of that, I don't think it's fun. Sonic found that kind of zone to fit into, and
Okay.
that's why I enjoyed Sonic.
But do you think fans of Mario Kart games could have discovered that as well? Like reviewers who are fans of Mario Kart would have also seen that, recognized that?
Probably. Will all
That's
of
the
them?
thing.
We
'Cause
don't
that's the thing,
know. Now wait,
yeah.
we don't know because we don't have those perspectives to even find out. Because we immediately go to the person who's probably liked Nintendo's Facebook page 6 times over and said, "Great, you're reviewing this because you're the Nintendo guy," and it's not interesting.
now, what it? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, please continue.
Well, I was gonna say, actually, I felt the same way with Mario Kart, and because Mod Nation Racers was so much faster, the sense of speed wasn't there for me. But I do like those games. I think it comes down to not so much. I guess if you're good at reviewing games, and it's very difficult to kind of say because when you look at it, like for instance, I don't like sports games all that much. I played them a long time ago, not so much now. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend myself to review a Madden. However, I think that I would give it a fair score. I wouldn't automatically give it like a 5 or a 4 because I don't play sports games. I think I've gotten to the point with writing that I can see what's good about it and see what people might like about it and what people might not like, even though I don't like the particular, uh, that genre too much. But a lot of times when I read reviews as of late, and I can't really say it's this publication or this publication because all the writers are different, but I see like two different sides. I see one side that doesn't like the genre, and I see a side that's like at least familiar with. I don't know if they like it or not, but they're familiar with it. And when I read the guys who don't like the genre, I don't get anything from it because all it is negative things that you don't like. For instance, there was a review on IGN, and I think I pointed this out a long time ago. There was a review on IGN for Double Dragon, one of the Double Dragon games, and the person that did the review was saying that just basically punching people in the face is not fun. Well, if you like beat 'em ups, that's not going to help you decide whether or not you want to play that game because you actually like punching people in the face. That's, you know what I mean, if you like that genre.
You might need a hug.
Yeah, yeah, but you know what I mean. Like if someone's like reviewing Call of Duty and they're like, all you do is shoot all day, well, that doesn't help me. I need more, more to it. Whereas the people who who I found anyways, who like that genre or who are more familiar with it, will break everything down for me. They'll, if we're talking about a fighting game, they'll talk about, counting frames. They'll talk about, combos and specials and all this other stuff. They'll talk about things that will interest me. And even if it's from a more glowing side, perspective, I can still, pull things that I may or may not like about the game from their review. But I can't seem to do that too much for people who just don't like the genre, which is why I normally kind of, as the editor-in-chief of my site, I normally shy away from the people that just do not play certain games. Axiom Verge was actually interesting, though, because the writer that we had for that, Andre Thomas, he doesn't play those games. He doesn't play Metroid and Castlevania. But he actually enjoyed the game. He enjoyed it a lot. So it was interesting to read his review, but for the most part, but I think he was a little bit different because he doesn't dislike Metroid. You know what I mean? He doesn't really play it, or it didn't have much.
There's a difference between not playing something just because you just haven't really played it, and not playing it because you actually dislike it.
Exactly, and I think that made his review interesting versus the people that don't like it, because I don't know if I want.
It's fresh eyes versus negative eyes.
Yeah, I don't know if I want negative eyes because it never really brings anything to the table for me.
See, I'm not saying, no wait, I'm not saying, oh, find the guy who hates Bloodborne, have him review Bloodborne. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying find the person who's probably the most middle on it and go with him or her or whoever it may be. Go with the person who, isn't the rabid fanboy. Obviously, if you have the Dark Souls guy reviewing Bloodborne, you're going to come out with a 9 or a 10. Whereas if you follow Jed Pressgrove on Twitter, he just reviewed Blood Souls, or what is it? What's the new one? Dark Souls, Blood Souls, Bloodborne. Way too much blood. He reviewed it and didn't like it, but it's an interesting perspective because he looks at it from like a Lovecraft perspective and how it's just this blatant copy of all that type of lore, and that's interesting. That's a valuable critique of the game that nobody else has done. And that's what you want. You don't want to be the site that gives it the 9 out of 10 and is at the top point of Metacritic, because that means you're the same as everybody else. Now, that's going to happen. I mean, if you like something, you like it. It's unavoidable, of course. If you don't like something, you don't like it. But there's that fear that if you have somebody you think might not like it, they just don't get it. And when you go ahead.
No, sorry. Yeah, I'll let you finish. Sorry.
When you come from traditional criticism, especially film criticism, a publication has one critic. Chicago Sun-Times had Roger Ebert. Time had Richard Corliss. One critic reviewed everything. You're telling me that Roger Ebert liked every single genre of movies equally and went into everything with the same amount of enthusiasm? No. Richard Corliss? No.
That's why I hated his reviews, by the way.
They're not. You can't possibly like everything, but as your job as a critic, you do. I just reviewed a Hugh Grant romantic comedy. Holy crap, am I not the target demographic for a Hugh Grant romantic comedy? But I liked it. I came away and I said, you know what? I had a good time with that movie. I went into it numb. I went into it probably, a little bit negative, and it won me over. So, okay, I liked it. Maybe the next one I don't like, because you don't know. And if you're playing your reviews to predictability, you're not doing anything interesting.
I think, well, before I go, Elon, go ahead.
I mean, for me, I don't know. It's tricky though. Like the guy who wrote the Bloodborne article, had he ever played a Dark Souls game before?
Yes.
Did he like those?
I can't speak for him. I don't know.
Cool. So because that's the thing to me, like that's sort of the perfect example. Really, the Souls games is a great example because Bloodborne is it's a Dark Souls game just under a different name, but that's what it is. And so if he didn't like a Dark Souls game, of course he's not going to like Bloodborne.
That's not necessarily true, though.
No, it really is, because it is the same as those other games. It doesn't. Its formula is exactly the same. It doesn't change. Again, and that's the thing. Like everything you talked about, how you said like an approach, a Lovecraftian thing. Like that's critiquing the art style of the game, the art direction, not the actual game, like or the gameplay. Like that's and I'm not saying there's no value to that. Like I enjoy reviews that do talk about that stuff. It's really cool and interesting. But like, if he didn't enjoy the gameplay, the mechanics, and the basic systems that those games function under, he was not going to enjoy Bloodborne, because it's the same thing.
Yeah, and it's well, there's some nuances to Bloodborne that are different that I think are more appealing to me because I'm not a Dark Souls fan, but I actually enjoyed the little bit of time I had with Bloodborne. Um, the thing is though, it's difficult for me, and maybe not. It's not that I would like to help anyone if that's the case because my job is to review a game, and so if your game is bad, I'm just gonna say it's bad. I'm not you know what I mean, not in terms of being negative towards the developer or whatever, but it's like I want to be fair. At the same time, it's like, do I see anything that could be appealing to someone playing this game? And a lot of times, with the people who don't like certain genres, they don't see anything that's appealing. And at least that's what's been as of late. When I go to different review sites, who, you know, outside of the ones that are like split, like everyone's in the in the middle, but it's like they don't like that genre, and so they say things that I'm like, I don't know if I can, I don't know if I can take you seriously because there's so much hate here. One review I had, and he doesn't dislike these games. I just want to point that out. And actually, I'm a big fan of his. Is Sterling, Jim Sterling. He did a review for the recent zombie game from Techland. Not is
Dying Light.
Dying Light.
Dying Light.
Right. And so his review, I was reading his review, and it was full of like, they took things from other games and put it in the game, and it's not their own. It's not their own. They're shamelessly pulling from other things, and I didn't like how the co-op. The co-op was like, someone joins your game and you play, and there's nothing really cool about the co-op, and all the stuff that he had. I was like, there's nothing here for me to decide whether I like the game or not because you just seem angry at it because it's not what you, I guess, expected it to be. But you don't break it down in the sense of these mechanics work because of this. It's more like I don't like this, and these are the reasons why I don't like it, but not in a way that's informative. I don't know if I'm explaining that well.
Yeah, I saw the same review, and yeah, it was very much of, I don't like this because it's not original. He's in no way saying whether or not it's good, or whether they copied it well or anything, just it was a copy. This wasn't, it wasn't an original idea. They took it from this game or that. And that's the thing, which is so I personally find that one of the laziest forms of review to be as a critique. It's fine to say it because it's easier to help your audience understand what the game is and how it works. But to critique a game for that is just really lazy and kind of just unfair because every game copies from other games. Like, that's what games have been doing for such a long time. And here's the other. It's kind of like saying, like, going back to Mario Kart is a great example. Like, then in theory, Jim Sterling should hate every Mario Kart because they've just stolen ideas from the last Mario Kart. Like, they don't introduce anything really new or anything. So Jim Sterling, by the same and that's the thing, he won't apply that same logic across everything. It's just for some reason he didn't like Dying Light. He wasn't going to give a pass for that. But he'd give a pass for probably most other games.
And
it's the exact same thing.
Here's an example. He likes the Dynasty Warriors games, and I kid you not, I have not found anything new in that series for years. And it's okay. It's not for me.
They put Zelda in it recently, didn't they?
Yeah, well, they did do that. It was a combination with them and Nintendo. But as far as like the Dynasty Warriors line itself.
Oh no, I'm joking. It's still just a Dynasty Warrior. It's a Zelda mod. It's a skin.
Right, and you know what I mean. So like, and then he goes to applauds it. He likes it, and it's cool. I'm not saying he shouldn't, but it's like the same logic. Even if you don't like something, like when I try to review it, if I don't like it, I try to find why I don't like it on a fundamental level, and explain it to you. Because even if I don't like it, it really doesn't matter if I like it or not. What matters is if you're informed about the mechanics of the game, and then you can decide for yourself. I'm just kind of like painting the picture of my experience, but for the most part, it's based on the mechanics and the gameplay, and whether or not you would like it. So like, if he says, "I don't like how it takes like 5 hits to kill a zombie," and I'm like, "Well, that doesn't sound that bad. I might like that. That's perfectly fine." But he's like, "The zombies are just ugly, and they don't do things that other zombies do." Like, wait a minute, like. Okay, what exactly don't you like about it that would affect the game is what I'm trying to get to. And his review is much more than what I'm making it out to be, but there's a lot of things that I couldn't, outside of a very few things, there wasn't a lot I could ascertain from his review that would make me decide whether or not I would buy it. It just wasn't. Excuse me. And I find that a lot with people who don't like a genre. That's how they review stuff. Um, and this also happens with particular games, not just genres. Another person who I like, I can't remember his name actually. He's the fighting guy on uh,
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
no no. He's the guy on Game Informer. Gosh, can't remember. My names are messed up. He's on Game Informer. He writes for Game Informer. And he does all the fighting games. And
I think move on to your point.
he reviewed he reviewed Dead or Alive. And he also reviewed Tekken Tag 2. I think it was Dead or Alive 5 and Tekken Tag 2. He reviewed them within the same month, I believe. And on Tekken Tag 2, he was like, you know what? I don't like it as much because it doesn't have all these extra features. Like Mortal Kombat 9 had the tower, it had story, it had all these other things. But in Tekken 2, you basically just fighting, versus people online. And that's all you got. But then he moves over to Dead or Alive, and he's like, I love this game because all you do is fight. There's no extra modes, there's no story to worry about. It's just fighting. And I'm like, wait a minute, you just condemned one game, but made another game look great based on the same criticism. Like, does anybody not see this? And I said things, and granted, I'm not, I'm a blip, compared to Game Informer. But I was like, really, does no one else see how hypocritical this sounds? I know they're two different games, but it's the same reason. You know what I mean?
Why is it a pro for one game and a con in the other?
Exactly. So I mean, that's where I find, and so that's why it's hard for me, more so on the guys who are negative. I don't see it as much for the positive guys, and that just could be my experience.
So for me, it comes down to one thing is, as a publication, you're in service to your readers. You always want to write what is going to be most relevant to your readers and most enjoyable for your readers and informative and all that. And I find usually, similar to something Kenny, you were saying earlier, is the people who generally don't enjoy a genre, they're going to have a much more shallow view on the game when they review it because they're not enjoying it. They kind of just want it to be over with to an extent. That's the reality of it. And they're only going to see the basics. Where someone who really enjoys the game and maybe is familiar with the genre, has played other games in the series or whatever, they're going to go much more in depth into the systems and the mechanics, and they can talk about what's different from the last game in the series versus the new one, and how mechanics have changed, and just they can give a much more in-depth review, which could be in much better service to the readers who are likely most interested in reading the review for that game. And that's one of the key reasons to me why I think it should be someone who it shouldn't be someone who isn't interested. I like the idea of someone who isn't experienced in a genre. That's fine. I think fresh eyes is good. I agree with Matt. Like it's good to have that mix to make it more interesting. I think in an ideal world, and this could just never happen because financially it wouldn't make sense to do, but I think it would be really cool if you could do dual reviews for most games, where you get the review done by someone who has experience in the genre and enjoys it, or the series or whatever, and then someone who's new to it, and have them both review at the same time, and sort of blend the review, blend both those opinions into the main review. I think that would be a really interesting thing to do. It makes no financial sense to get two reviewers to review one game, but still, that would sort of be the best of both. But from my experience, when I've had to review a game series that I don't enjoy or a genre I'm not interested in, even I can admit I probably did not write the most interesting or valuable review for the readers. I wrote the best I could, but end of the day, I wasn't interested in the game. I didn't enjoy it because I just can't see what people like about the game. It's just I don't get it. It's not for me. And end of the day, that's going to be my opinion. And for the people who are interested in that game going to read the review, that's probably not the opinion they're interested in reading about.
Okay, I've been quiet for a while.
Yes.
I
had noticed that.
I have been stacking notes in my head. As for the Game Informer thing, I got to bring this one up because this is my favorite example of someone not knowing what they're doing. It was one of the Time Crisis games, and I don't recall which one. I don't know what issue it is. But they reviewed one of the Time Crisis, and the entire point of the negative review was that the game did not have a site marker on the screen. And I read this, and I'm thinking, it's a light gun game. It shoots where you point. Why do you need the pointer on the screen?
Yeah, exactly.
Some
And
people need help, man. Who are you
that
to
was the
judge?
that was the entire gist of the review. That is a bad example of this. That is not how you do it. What I keep hearing is that it's not valuable to an audience. What is the point of giving that audience the same thing 30 times across 30 sites? Nothing.
Well,
It's just reiterating the point.
yeah,
So
but
it's not
most people
interesting.
don't read 30 different websites. Like most people
They,
have. I would say your average gamer has 1 to 3 sites they visit regularly
more than
for
likely.
opinions.
More than likely, but certainly people go to Metacritic and they see all these reviews. They see the reviews of Bloodborne and they're all 9s and 10s. And there's that one guy on the fence who maybe didn't like Dark Souls too much, but maybe he's interested in Bloodborne. He goes and just sees 9s and 10s. Nobody is there to help him out to even that out because in this industry, you never give a AAA game less than a 7. That's
But
a
here's the
known
thing:
fact.
why does it need to be even? Like, what do you mean by no one's there to even? Like, do you think the game has to have a lower score somewhere?
No, not at all. But I can tell you that if I go comparing again to the film industry, 12 Years a Slave is a great movie. But I can guarantee you I can find at a major site listed on one of those aggregator sites a negative review. It happens. Some people just don't like something, and at least there is that
Yeah.
review to balance it out to give me information that maybe I wanted as a reader. So to say you're not servicing the reader is part of the problem because you probably are, you just don't know who your audience is. You can't possibly know beforehand when you're writing a review before embargo to say, "Oh, my audience is going to want a 9 for Bloodborne. I'm going to give it a 9." No, you can't do that. You
No, you're
review
right.
it honestly, and you can't say, "Oh, well, I think my audience will like this." It's not about what your audience wants. It's about what you liked, and it's about what you didn't like. And I'll end it with this and saying the entire problem we have in game criticism, broadly as I can draw it out, is that we continue to review them just as products. And that is why we continue to have reviews as straight across the board as humanly possible. And it is the most boring, blatantly obvious way to review a game anymore. For as complex as they're getting, if you review a game and tell me the graphics are good, I can go to Amazon and look at screenshots. I can go to YouTube and see a video. I can make up my mind about that. So, I need a features list. Well, go to Amazon. Amazon has a great features list. What's different from the last game? I don't know. Let me go to Best Buy's website and see. So to review them as a product is utterly pointless in the time of the internet. That is why you need things like the Presco review of Bloodborne, which looked at it from the H.P. Lovecraft angle, which is interesting. It's something different. It's something divisive. It's something to incite a discussion and pull people in and go, "Hey, maybe there's a point there." And what happens? What happens immediately after a major game is released 2 weeks down the line? There's this intense hype. We love it. We love it. It's the greatest thing ever. And then all of a sudden you go to the comments, people are like, "I didn't like that. That was awful. I can't believe all those sites gave it a 9." Because there are those people who looked at it with a little bit of perspective and went, maybe that wasn't the greatest thing. Some things are. Some things are fantastic. Some games are awesome. Is it awesome to everybody? No. So you need that divergent opinion somewhere across the board to help people make decisions better. Instead of like Kotaku's system, which is, should you play this? Which is, well, yeah, you should probably play everything. Ideally, you should probably watch every movie. That's not a system that's helping people. So if you look at games from a different perspective, you bring in people who can give you that different perspective, and you don't review them just as products, suddenly you have a really interesting bottle of criticism to shake up and look at and go, yes, this is kind of cool. You have the positive reviews, you have the negative reviews, and suddenly there's a balance, because right now there's no balance, and that's the problem.
But I mean, well, with the product thing, it is a product. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm buying it to play, and I get that there's my thing is that even if it's interesting, but not serviceable, if it's interesting but not, it doesn't help me decide if I want to buy it. I mean, he could have all these Lovecraftian, I don't know, it gives him crazy dreams at night. That's great, but will that tell me if I want to experience the game or not? Probably not, because I don't really care outside of that. Because at the end of the, we talked about earlier about Telltale games, and I was saying that how they're great, interactive novels and whatnot. But if I only talk about the story and not actually the mechanics of the game, you might come away thinking like, oh, that was a great, there's a great story in there, but I didn't like the experience at all because all I talked about was the more abstract things. Like I think there has to be, it's cool to look at a game differently, and maybe there's, maybe someone would have it'll be great to do like a follow up where like you talk about more abstract things, but before we get to those points, I would like to know about the gameplay so I can actually decide if I want to buy it or not.
So where this is breaking up is the topic's actually shifting a little bit, because where you two are disagreeing isn't about what the topic was. What the disagreement now has become is what's actually the purpose of a review. And that's where your opinions are actually differing. It's because you both are looking for review, two different things for review. Kenny, you're looking for, you want a review basically. You believe the end goal of a review is to tell the person whether or not the game is worth buying or worth playing. Should they buy it?
Right.
That's that's the thing you're looking for. Where Matt, what you're looking for is just critique. It's just critique of the what it is, the art creation that has been made by developers over the 2-3 years of working on something is critiquing it the same way. And that's the thing, like you keep comparing it to film reviews, and to be honest, I don't think that's fair. I don't think game reviews and film reviews function the same way, especially with regards to the topic that we have, because genres don't work the same way in films as it does in video games. Not all comedies are the same. There's so many different types of comedies, whereas, Madden games, every Madden game is basically the same. Every FIFA game is basically the same. There isn't major divergences within the genre. So it's not really fair to compare the two with regards to reviews. But the thing is and that's a discussion we can have, is what is the purpose of a review? And the thing is, at the end of the day, it'll be different for different people. Different people want different things, as we've seen from the discussion you two just had.
And I want to clarify that though I think the purpose for me is to decide if I want to buy a game or not, I'm not above, or I don't think, because there's a lot of people out there who are like, don't talk about, if there's a gay character, don't talk about the gay character, don't put your politics into the review and blah blah blah. Like I don't believe that. However, whatever your opinion is of the game and what brought you to the conclusion that you should purchase and everyone should experience it, I think it should be enough information that makes me decide for myself. If everything is and like for instance, if you were in because I have a degree in art, and a lot of the art galleries, some of the art is just it's out there, and one of them that we were looking at was a painting that was just, it was white, like all white painting, and to me I was like, I really don't know why I would buy this, but okay, it's art for some people, but if I had to like critique that, and then explaining that to someone, if I'm like all of these emotions that I felt, but I didn't actually say what the painting was, I don't think I could sell it to anyone, because it's a blank painting. I don't know if that explains it well, but that's what I look at when I see those reviews that are like, they're pulling from all these different things from their artistic license and value that they see, but at the end of the day, it's still a video game. I'm gonna play it. You know what I mean? If it was passive, I can understand that, but that's not the case. There has to be some type of mentioning of what the button does when I press it. If that's not in there, then I can't decide if I want to play it, and that's not a review. That's more of like something I would see towards an editorial or something that you thought that was really cool, but not a review.
Telling you what a button does is called an instruction manual.
I'm on Matt's side with this, and I don't agree with you. A review does not have to tell you whether or not you should buy it or whether or not you should play it. A review purely is a critique giving his opinion on something. What you want to do. And the same way how you said about the painting, you're not trying to sell that painting when you review it. You are talking about what that painting makes you feel, the experience it has given you. It's not, at the end of the day, that review of the painting should not tell the person reading that review whether or not they should go to the gallery and buy it.
No, I'm not saying like in what he was saying with Kotaku, like, should you play this or shouldn't you play this? What I'm saying is, whatever your experience is of that game, I should be able to pull the information out to say whether or not I want to buy the game. That's what
No,
I'm
but
saying. So like,
no,
if
but
you're,
I'm
if you're
saying no, but I'm saying you
wait,
shouldn't. I'm saying the
wait,
review is not for you.
wait.
The review's purpose is not to help you make any decision whatsoever. That's not the purpose of a review. At least that's my opinion. You have
Okay,
a different
okay,
opinion,
okay.
and that's the thing. And neither of us are wrong. And that's the thing. Neither of us are wrong here. We're both right. There's different. That's what you look for from a review. You want to help. You want a review to help you with a decision.
Something just dawned on me.
Where other people don't. Like Matt doesn't. That's not what Matt wants for reviews. And I'm on Matt's side. I also think reviews can be more than just helping with an opinion.
I think that what dawned on me, what just dawned on me is my idea for the review. The reason why I say it that way is because I haven't experienced anything. I haven't seen the game outside of trailers and whatnot. So I'm looking for something to tell me what's in it that isn't anywhere else, based on your opinion. So like, if me and you are friends, and like, just like we talked about Avengers a few moments ago, and I want to know whether or not I should see it. I'm like, okay, what did you think? Why did you like it? Why did you dislike it? However, it seems like where you're coming from is a critique where we both have seen the same thing. It's kind of like when we do the spoiler cast and we talk about the things that we liked, and disliked in The Last of Us. When we, but we both have already experienced it. At that point, it's not. To me, it's not. You're not trying to sell me on anything. You're just giving me your opinion, and we can both have a dialogue. I don't think reviews offer me that dialogue because I haven't experienced it yet. So I can't talk to you that way, and so it doesn't offer me much when someone does it that way. If that makes sense, I don't know if I'm explaining that.
Okay, let me throw this out there. Let me try this one. You look at old game reviews. You look at classic game reviews. Let's go back to the days of GamePro. Those reviews existed to sell a video game. Nintendo Power reviews existed to sell a video game. So they gave them ratings based on graphic, sound, gameplay, whatever other arbitrary number they gave it. They were very direct. Oh, the graphics are fantastic. They're awesome. These graphics are great. They're the best I've ever seen. All kinds of hyperbole. They existed just to sell a product. They were very product-minded reviews. What happened was, in the days of the internet, we have YouTube, we have Twitch, we have all these other avenues to see how a game plays. So all of a sudden now you see critics looking at games and going, now wait a minute, we can't do that anymore because it's utterly pointless to do. So now I'm working on a side project that I'm not going to announce yet. But I'm going back and I'm playing the video game Platoon, based on the movie on the NES. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, man, this game reviewed awful. This game's just awful in every single respect. It has nothing to do with the movie. It's just awful. But when you look at Platoon and you really think about it, it's this amazing game that compartmentalizes the entire Vietnam War down to a way a kid can understand it. That's really interesting. It's not a good video game, but it's doing really interesting things that were never considered because we only looked at it as a product. Now, obviously, I'm looking 30 years ahead here. Obviously, I can look at from that perspective. If I was writing it for GamePro, I wouldn't have had that perspective. But looking at it now, I'm going, wow, that's a really interesting video game. That's what we're missing. We're missing the AAA of video games, and we're looking at them so basically and broadly that it's just not interesting. And as such, because we're continuing to review them the same way we would at GamePro, we're getting the same numbers we always did, which is AAA games that never score lower than a 7 because we do it in the most predictable way possible, which really, in this day and age, doesn't help anybody with all the other avenues they have to find out information about video games.
You keep going to score as the
it's
thing
broad,
you
I
do.
know.
No, it's not even broad. It's irrelevant. Like you're talking about opinion, so why are you talking about the number that's showing on Metacritic? Like you want a differing opinion. The numbers, like you and I could give a game an 8. Right? Like we could each review the same game and both give an 8, but we could also both have quite different opinions on that game. Maybe you didn't like the I don't know. You didn't like the second level as much, where I love the second level. So that's the reason it didn't get a 9 for you, but it didn't get a 7 for me. Like, the numbers are just so irrelevant because you can't actually understand what the opinions were based on those numbers. And the differing opinions...
Now, I'm only using numbers in the context of the conversation. Because I don't have any
other... There's no conversation in numbers.
No, there is. There is, because I can't say, oh, we need someone to look at Bloodborne. I did that. I did the Lovecraft thing, and I looked at people who loved it in terms of gameplay. That's what I'm referring to when I'm referring to numbers. That's the only thing. I don't have a means of expressing 30 different opinions on one game other than to say all of them are giving it 9s and 10s. That's all I'm doing. I have
So so
You know,
no
I
meaning
get,
in numbers.
but what I mean is when you said like when people go to Metacritic and they see all these nines, there's no actual guarantee that all those nines are the same opinion.
true, very true.
Very true. Very true. But we know
Yeah,
they
and
are
the
all
only way
going
to
look at it
know
positively.
The only way to know is to read every single one, and no one actually is going to be doing that.
And how do you know which one to read? You don't. But if you have that outlier who
well-
gave it a little lower score, and you look at it and go, okay, maybe this one's going to be interesting. It's giving you a dissenting opinion. Okay, cool. I'm going to check this one out.
So
True, but then but see, and that, if score is the deciding factor, that's how you end up with websites who give lower scores just to get attention.
Oh, absolutely. And that's a huge problem, too.
Yeah.
So I think
Which again, I mean, scores is a whole different conversation.
Oh,
you,
it is.
You and
It's
I,
a
we
mess.
talked about this once. How we don't like scores for
No.
reviews anyway. So
I think they're necessary, but I don't like them.
right.
I think a ranking system is necessary. I don't think scores is a good ranking system.
Well, I think that it's possible to have an interesting review that isn't just okay. Are the graphics? All right, sorry for that, folks. My recorder went down. But basically, what I wanted to say was, with the reviews, that it's possible to have a interesting view and still give the player something to hold on to in terms of like, you know, whether or not they want to buy the game. And a perfect example, or I think is a good example, not perfect, is the review I gave for This War of Mine. It's actually not a fun game. It's 11-bit Studios game where basically you look at the life of people that are in a besieged city, where, you know, soldiers are fighting and whatnot, and they have to survive while all this stuff is going on. And it's not a fun game. It's kind of depressing, but it's an experience that I think everyone should have. Like, as a gamer, that you should play it. And so my review was from just basically my perspective, like what happened while I was playing. But while reading what happened, so it wasn't like a normal review. But when you're reading what happened to me, you can see like, oh, okay, you can actually scavenge for supplies. Oh, okay, you have to, you know, have bandages when you get wounded, or, you know what I mean. So you get what the mechanics are by just reading my experience. But it's not like, oh, the graphics are nice, I gave it a this or whatever. It's purely just my experience and how I felt while playing. So I think it's very possible to give a, you know, interesting look without it being totally one-sided, if that makes sense.
Well, there's a sense of context, right? Like, I can't review a movie without giving some context for who the characters are and why they're in the story. Because from there, that's where you build whatever other critique that you have. The Hugh Grant thing I mentioned earlier, it's a Hugh Grant movie where Hugh Grant plays Hugh Grant. But why is it different than the other Hugh Grant movies? Well, Hugh Grant's doing these things as a writer, and it's kind of self-aware.
Hugh Grant is not a genre. Stop saying You keep doing that. He's not a genre.
Hugh Grant is his own genre, okay?
No, he is not.
No, wait a minute.
You
Liam
can say he
Neeson-
plays the same character in all of his movies, but the genre of the movie will still be different depending on what the
Liam
actual
Neeson-
movie is.
Wait, Liam
it's the
Neeson
same,
is
it's
his
the
own
same as
genre.
Owen. No, it's the same as like Owen Wilson, the dude with the dent in his nose. I can't stand him. He plays the same character in every movie, and every movie that character's kind of a douche.
Yes.
I can't stand him, but I can no way say every movie that he's in is an Owen Wilson movie.
I can say every Liam Neeson movie is a Liam Neeson movie. Recently.
Have you
I
seen
can say
Schindler's List?
that. Okay, I said recently.
Yeah, recently.
Okay.
Recently, he's taken in every film.
No, but
Yes.
that's different though. That's because he's playing. He's doing the same genre in every film and playing pretty much the same character.
True.
But that's the thing. It's not because of Liam Neeson that it's a Liam Neeson movie. It's that he's playing the same genre. It is old guy action movie. That's the genre.
I'll take that.
You know, so that's the thing. But like an actor on his own is not the genre. They might play the same, and that's the thing. Like Owen Wilson will play in a comedy every time, but even there, not all of his comedies are the same. Like you can't compare Wedding Crashers to crap. What's the movie about the dog?
He had a movie with a dog?
Yeah.
Oh God, Marley and me don't remember.
Marley,
Don't
Marley.
remind me of that movie.
The thing, like, he plays the same guy in those movies fundamentally because he always plays himself, but you could not say those are the same movies. You couldn't even say it's... And they're both comedies, but you couldn't even say they're the same genre, really, because one's a bit more drama comedy. Like, they're not Owen Wilson movies. He's not a genre.
Hugh Grant's
I
a
get it.
genre.
He's not.
What was your
He's
point?
not.
Genre.
What was your point, Matt?
I don't even remember. Just like Hugh Grant's a genre.
Well,
But you know the things that Kenny, just going back to what you were saying with this war of mine.
yeah,
Because the thing, because you kept saying like it's not a fun game, and to the average person, when you say that, that immediately comes across as a very negative critique,
right,
and that's not the case in that game.
correct.
Like, and that's the reason I think it's very, and that's I say the reviewers kind of need to be careful with the language we use because yeah, the idea that games need to be fun, like that's what a good game is. A good game is fun, but that's changed like in the last few years, like
Yep.
because games aren't. I still think video games is a word that we need to come with a different name for the industry.
Yep.
To be honest,
It
I've
reminds
said
me
that for
of video cassette.
yeah. Firstly, video needs to be out, and then games as well. Like it's just because they're not always games in the sense of like a board game and fun games. Like they are interactive experiences. You know, like you're right. This War of Mine is not fun in traditional sense, but it's still a really good game. It's a good experience. The Walking Dead. No one would describe that as fun. Telltale's The Walking Dead.
Right.
No one would, in their right mind, would describe it as fun. But they're good games.
But I think you should say that. The reason I say that, and maybe, and the reason I say that you should use that language is because we don't have those names yet. They're all under video games.
Yeah, but
so
but
when
the
I
thing
when
is,
I
if
say,
you do, then every time you have to be so careful to explain what you mean. They
Right.
say this isn't fun, but by the way, I don't mean that as a bad thing. Like,
no.
why
Well-
even bother?
well, the thing is, okay. So the way I did it in this War of Mine, I talked about my entire experience all the way to the end. And then in the end, I explained that, okay, this isn't really a fun experience. It wasn't a fun experience for me. And then I kind of explained why. But the majority of the review before that, you've read all the way to that point, then you would understand why I would be saying that.
And that's the thing. What was it necessary to say? Couldn't you have just said this was a good experience without having to say whether it was the word fun was a fact? Like, why was fun even important? Why was it necessary?
I was going to explain that.
Sorry.
And the reason why I was saying that right now we don't call it an experience and then a video game. And so when I say that it's not fun, it's for the people who are looking for a game to be fun. So the review is not trying to be all encompassing, but it is in the sense of, if you read my review, you understand that this is a good experience that everyone should have, and then at the end you understand that this isn't necessarily fun. So if you were looking for fun, I'm going to warn you ahead of time. So you can't come back to me and be like, that game sucked because I didn't have fun. Well, I kind of told you that it wasn't going to be fun, but 90% of my review was about other things. You know what I mean? Until we have those labels where we're like, okay, this is going to be this type of experience, this is this type of experience, then I don't have to say fun anymore. I could just say, this is a good game based on this. But because we have everything under video game, people automatically expect, is it fun or not? So I felt the need to say that in my review.
Okay,
because some people are looking for that.
But don't you think from reading the rest of the context of your review, they would have already understood that?
Possibly. Because when you think about it, some people like that. And no offense, but when people play Dark Souls, I don't think that game is fun. Like, it's difficult and annoying, and it's the roguelike experience, and the fact that it doesn't really tell you where to go and all this other stuff.
It's BDSM, the video game.
Exactly. But some people like that. So
yeah, they do.
So like the fact that I say like it basically it allows me to tag that one particular person who might be looking for a fun game, and I think that's okay or fair because I didn't base my entire review on whether it's fun. It didn't affect its score at all, So I just think it's fair because again, my definition of a review is you informing me so I can make a decision. This allows you to make a full decision because you get the full experience. It's still interesting, and you get to know whether or not it's fun, on that whole level or not. Personally.
Yeah.
So anyways.
I see his point. I'll end it here. I know we're trying to rush for time. But, yeah, I get his point. You think of video game, you think of fun. It's fun time, it's happy time, it's relaxation time, but some games aren't. But I think that's the job of the critic, is to get that across without being so direct about it.
True.
Oh, well, here's a video game with a bunch of puppies, and the enemies drop a bomb on top of them. Well, that's probably not a fun video game, and I probably don't need to include that. It's an interesting game because I really want them to die now, but yeah, you need to be really clear about it. And I think if you are giving what you went through, that should give the point. And there's a sense that I'm worried it's not clear enough. You got to give your audience something to grab onto. You got to give them some credit that they're gonna grab it. It's hard to be deliberate sometimes. I understand that, you have to, because you do expect video games to be fun, but that's a whole other approach to reviews is a whole other topic, I guess.
See, that game that you described gets really interesting because at level 9 you play from the perspective of the bomb dropper, and you get the origin story of what the puppies did to deserve it.
There you go.
No puppies.
Yeah, like those puppies aren't innocent, let me tell you.
All right, so moving on, the next topic we wanted to talk about, which I don't know if it's been addressed or not with Valve, is the whole idea of mods, paying for mods. And, with PC gaming, for like as long as I can remember anyways, mods were always a free thing, unless they somehow turned into their own game, Counter-Strike, Dota, League of Legends. Yeah. But outside of that, they were always free. It was something that, the community made for funsies and threw it in and see if it worked, and, or either it was a mod that fixed something that the developer couldn't fix. We see that a lot nowadays with ports. But, Valve, through their, the community-based, market, Steamworks, they allowed you to sell mods. And what happened was that people started selling mods that were made by other people and loading them to Steamworks, and people were paying them for it, and it was stolen. I mean, it was free, so it's not stolen, but they what I mean. They were claiming that it wasn't their work. Yeah, they stole it.
It's still stealing someone else's work and claiming and selling it as your own.
Yeah.
It's plagiarism.
There you go. Yeah. That's the word I was looking for. Plagiarism. Excuse me. So I guess what we were thinking about is whether or not this was a good idea in the first place, and how should Valve respond, being that they want to be they have this idea of like an open world, Wild West type thing with Steam, and that the good stuff will rise to the top and the crap will die, and being hands off. Do you think that approach was a smart one, and do you think they should be doing this paid mods at all? Like, what do you guys think?
I like the idea of paid mods. I just think the way Valve did it was extremely irresponsible.
Yeah.
That was a short thought. Next.
But that's it. Like, it's not like in the sense of what happened here, this is not a complicated situation. Like, Valve did this in the simplest way they possibly could, and of course people took advantage of it, and it became a complete mess because there wasn't a lot of thought put into, like, you can't do a store thing without rules around legality and things like with artwork and stuff like that. There has to be just rules with that, and to make it fair for the people who actually put the work in and created the stuff that's being sold. Make sure that they sell their stuff and no one else tries to sell their stuff, and other things like that. Like, it's ridiculous that was allowed to that it was made so open and free, and so that Valve can't just be like, here, you can do it now, do whatever you want, we don't care. Like, yeah, of course it was going to become this, but I do think it's a really good. I think it's a cool idea, and I would like to see it executed in a good way. Like, build an actual store front for it.
There's a way to do this, but there's so many caveats with it, and I don't know that you'll ever work around it. I mean, say someone uploads an Elder Scrolls mod that makes the grass look better, and I'm speaking just broadly here. Ooh, grass. Ooh. But let's say a person buys that mod, or let's say someone downloads that mod, but then enhances it and makes it better. Do they have the right to sell that, even though they're using the base mod for that? There's a whole complication here. When you deal with the public with issues like this, it's a nightmare. You see Etsy designs showing up on corporate websites, and these things happen. People copy things, they try to pass them off as their own. That's inevitable, and I think that's what that created. The bigger issue is, the very first comment I saw on this whole topic was someone pointing out that you can't even play Elder Scrolls without the mods in general. I'm like thinking, how bad is Elder Scrolls that you need the mod to even make it work? That's a huge situation, and it's just awful. And that's why mods exist, right? It's to fix what the developers couldn't, they didn't have time for. They make GTA look hyper real. GTA 4 had an incredible mod I know of that just made it look hyper realistic. It's kind of depressing that that's what PC gaming has kind of become in that space. I don't think the idea of charging for mods is a bad idea. I just don't know why, if you want your mod to sell, you can't just do it yourself anymore. Why do you need Steam for it?
Well, because that's where the audience is.
True. True.
Well,
Like,
people still
that's-
get mods without Steam.
Well, they don't. Yeah, but over the years that's been changing. Where Steam is becoming Steam is where you have your game, and Steam is where you will find and install the mods as well now. Like
Yeah,
that's become
yeah.
like, and that's great. Like it's good that it's easy. That's being made easier for people to find mods and install them, and I think that's really cool. Yeah, I don't know. My concern also is if you do this eventually, it's going to kill the modding community to an extent because people start doing it. Well, I'm only going to do it now if I can make money from it, and most people are going to be like, "Well, I've been getting this for free for the last 20 plus years. I'm not going to pay for it."
It's kind of like cheat codes, which they
Yeah,
charge for
that
now.
is. That's the thing. It's like you know what? No, I'm not going to pay $2 for greener grass. F you, man. Like keep your green grass.
It's not
Like-
always greener on the other
Like
side.
yeah, no, that's the thing. Like a lot of mods are crap. I forgot the word. Like they're neat little things, but they're kind of gimmicky in a way. Like they're not. Very few mods are like necessary. Most mods are just sort of nice to have and like, hey, it's free, cool, I'll try this out. And there's the other thing, like, how do you know which mods are good? How do you know which mods will actually work correctly? Some don't. Some
Elder
take a lot of
Scrolls.
tinkering. Yeah, and it's also just how do you know it's any good? How do you know that you actually even want this mod? That's the thing with mods. It's nice that you can install them, try them, be like, nope, that grass is too green, and then get rid of it. But if you're spending money, no one's going to spend money to experiment like that.
Well, yeah, and then you said something interesting too, Matt, about who owns what, and like people modding mods and whatnot. Do you think it'll get to the point where it's like, how people are angry at Nintendo because you have to have like a partnership with them on YouTube to do just plays with them?
Oh, that should have been a topic. Oh God, that would have been a fun one.
Well,
Yeah, I'm kicking
next
myself
week,
now.
next
yeah,
month.
next week.
But
Yeah.
but do you think it'll eventually get to something like that? Like, wait, you guys are making way too much money off of my game with your mods. Like, that's crazy. Because no one said anything before when it was free, but I can totally see someone saying, you mod something that I put on Steam, especially like an indie dev, and you got more money than I did. Like, I can see someone raising some eyebrows.
That's a really interesting point I hadn't thought of because I mean,
So-
really, if you're doing a mod, you're using the source code in some capacity.
So something I read about this, and I don't know, I didn't see anything official 100% confirming it, but what someone said is apparently part of this agreement with Steam, basically the publishers had to kind of agree to it as well. So when the mods are sold, a percentage of the sale goes to the publisher.
Wow, that's
if
crazy.
the mod is sold for their game.
That is really.
Again, now, I don't know if that's 100% true. That's just something that I read in a comment on an article about this. So, take it for what that is. I'm not saying 100% that is what it is, but that's something I read, which that would make sense to me. That solves the problem you two just raised. If it's
Yeah.
like 10, 20%, it's fair. It's a small amount. And keep in mind, most of the time on PC games, at least, most developers, they like modders. They encourage modding for their games. So
They find people that way. They hire
yeah,
people.
exactly. So again, what if a modder wants to make a little bit of money? I don't see. I mean, yeah, other than like in Nintendo's case, like just pure greed. Yeah, I don't see it being a massive
I
issue.
don't know, because it's you look at like who did the mod first and stuff like that, and what assets did you pull from to make the mod.
Oh yeah, no,
and then-
modders modding other mods, that will be an issue. But if you're saying, I thought you meant like the developers or the original publishers of the game saying, "Hey, now you're making money off of the game we made."
Well, that too. If it's something where they're not getting a piece, uh,
Yeah,
because
because you mentioned the Nintendo thing, so I thought that's what you meant.
well, yeah, that too. Because you think about it, before it wasn't. It's never something that's been brought up because it never added. No one ever made money. And even if the game eventually turned into its own game, it was usually by the publisher. Like they're like, "Hey, we like what you made there. We want to make that into a game too. Do you want to work with us?" You know, that's
Right.
how I think Battlefield came about. So I mean, it's that was never a problem. But when you start having money, when you start adding money to it, there's a different conversation there.
Yeah. So you want to know what I say is probably the easiest solution to this whole thing?
Which is
You don't buy mods, but you just Valve just adds a donation button.
Yep.
That kind of solves it.
oh, that would have been
That way, it
genius.
allows modder to get the money, but they're not always going to get the money. There's no sale thing. There's no copyright issues. There's no legality around selling something because they're not selling. They're providing mods for free, the same way they always have. Valve is just creating a system that makes it easy for people to donate to their favorite modders if they want.
Well, here's the thing, though. Obviously, Steam's getting a cut of these mod sales too,
I would assume so.
and
Yeah.
we don't know really how this came. But this was I saw it literally with a post on Reddit which said the day PC gaming died and linked me to the page. And that was it.
PC
And I was
gamers
like,
are so dramatic, aren't they?
oh yeah, I don't do PC gaming anyway. That's how it started, though, and that's how people saw it. So this was something that just literally happened. But in the background, there was a huge discussion about this, and Valve's going, "How much are we going to make? How much should we charge? Should we let them set price?" I mean, there's a huge, obviously, legal discussion here too that Valve had, and obviously Valve was getting a cut. I don't know how much. I'm sure they can come up with numbers and say, "Oh, it wasn't much." It doesn't matter how much it was; you're still getting a cut. So, I mean, obviously that's involved. If you do a donate button, that goes away, and they don't get their cut. So, what's the value to them then?
And they might not do it. I mean, they might. I mean,
Well,
Valve has been known to do that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, good PR at that point.
Yeah, I mean, because doesn't Steamworks kind of do that now, anyways, with some of their stuff that people provide. You can opt to pay them for certain things. Like I thought that was somewhat a part of it from the get go. At least that was the point, I thought. Because I look at Counter Strike and there's a bunch of guns that are modded guns that skins and whatnot that you have to pay for via the Steam Workshop. So it's been happening for some time. I guess not to this extent.
Yeah, well with Counter Strike, I think they're taking the same approach they did with Dota, where people are selling skins and that sort of stuff. Or cosmetic stuff, and that's the thing. Like, those are all cosmetic add-ons to the game, where mods normally are seen as bigger than that. Like,
Right.
yeah, those are what mods can be as well, but the kind of mods I think that they're envisioning with this idea are the bigger mods, the things like, selling a game like Counter-Strike if you've built one out of another game, or greener grass.
This conversation would have been way more fun if we were discussing breast physics, by the way. Just saying.
Oh man, there's so much you could talk about.
We totally missed that one.
I'd buy that for $1.
Awesome. So last thing we want to talk about was the recent announcement from Telltale, who seems to be taking all IP known to man. They're almost like Lego in that sense. They announced that they're doing a partnership with Marvel to bring out a Marvel game. Same, similar to what they did when they announced the whole Minecraft, Telltale game. How do you guys feel about that?
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
It depends who's writing it, I guess. Is this going to be like Marvel writing, or is Telltale going to handle it? Because in terms of writing, no one's doing it better than Marvel. You look at the films, even something like Daredevil, which I just started getting into this week, and oh my god, is that show good!
Yes.
It's just amazingly written, and it shows that Marvel can do dark, and they can do light, and they can do both really, really, really freaking well. So if someone on the Marvel side is really handling that and is all in, 100%. If Telltale's doing it, I'm going to taper off a little bit, but Telltale's been doing really good stuff too, so I can't argue. I mean, even some of their low ends, like Jurassic Park,
Yes.
I still enjoyed. That was probably more a property than it was the game itself, but
Yeah.
I thought it was still a good ride.
I don't care.
The QuickTime events just killed me in that game. Marvel.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
I'm bored of the Telltale formula. Like every one of their games, regardless of the IP that it's built in, is the same at this point. And yeah, as we know from The Walking Dead, although they're not really like gameplay heavy, it's more interactive story stuff. In which case, 100% of it is going to come down to, as Matt's saying, the writing. You know, that whether or not it's actually a good story that's told well. And at this point, I don't care.
Which is interesting coming from you because you were hyping them a while ago with The Walking Dead with being like the best thing ever.
No, and here's the thing. I never played season 2 of The Walking Dead. I loved the first Walking Dead, but after that, it's like, you know what? When I thought to myself, do I want to go through that again? And the answer ended up coming with, no, I don't. Like, I really enjoyed the first one was amazing. It was an amazing experience, and it was a really good story. But would I want to play through that if the story wasn't going to be as good? Probably not. And also, I mean, look, in The Walking Dead's case, it's just that emotionally it was just so draining. I didn't want to put myself through that again. So yeah, I mean, you'd have like Tales of Borderlands, which are probably much lighter than Walking Dead. Marvel also probably would be a bit lighter than The Walking Dead, but I'm just not interested in playing through again. I'm not always saying they're bad, and like I'm glad that there's an audience for that. I'm glad that they're doing well. And geez, getting Marvel as an IP, like Telltale is just kicking butt lately with the IPs that they're getting allowed access to make their games. Great news for them. I'm just personally not interested in playing those kind of games.
This is
The
like
Walking Dead was enough for me, kind of thing.
Yeah, this is like the Lego games in me, where they were really fun. The problem with the Lego games, and I'm assuming the only Telltale stuff I played was Jurassic Park and again first season of Walking Dead. I haven't played anything. I played like the demo of Wolf's Among Us or something like that. Is that the engine is almost too obvious. And it's like, well, this engine was for Walking Dead, and all of a sudden now I'm going to play it with Jurassic Park, which is completely different, and it doesn't fit. There's no tweaking it to really fit the license in any way.
And the same art style for every one of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you know what? They're not all like the first one was you were copying the art style of The Walking Dead. Great. These aren't The Walking Dead.
Well, I will
Use
say
their art style. Don't apply the same. Yeah, it just comes across as lazy.
Well, I did like The Wolf Among Us. I think visually it was a little bit better than The Walking Dead. It was more colorful, vibrant. But yeah, I think I'm in the middle with this. It's not like old Telltale games, like Sam and Max, back in the day, craziness and just the older styled adventure games, which in and of itself is kind of good. And then at the same time, it's like, they have developed a formula that's been working somewhat, and it works well. With this being a comic book property, it kind of lends itself to this type of storytelling. But like you were saying, it's if you played The Walking Dead and you played Wolf Among Us, and now Game of Thrones and Borderlands, you're basically playing the same game. I think they really need to change things up. And hopefully they do that with Minecraft and Marvel, but I think they need to change things up to kind of give that same sense of freshness that they did with The Walking Dead. Like, this is an event, like, adventure games, like, for me anyways, I wasn't really big on back in the day. I mean, I played some of them, like the classics, but just because people were talking about them. But with The Walking Dead, I was like, I really want to play these now. And I think they need something like that to bring it back. The problem though is that these games they don't lend themselves to anything outside of a good story. The action is usually just tacked on. It doesn't really make you feel like I don't really like QTEs to begin with. And it just outside of that you just have the story, and it's like and then it's like, well, I know that there's other options, there's other things you can do based on your decisions, but they never really strayed too far away from the main story that they've written. And then at the same time, I don't want to go back and experience it again just to see, if I didn't save this guy, but I saved this guy, I don't want to go back and actually have to experience that. I'll just look at it on YouTube or read it on Wikipedia or whatever. So I think that's probably going to be a problem going forward for them. And maybe not, because they're selling like hotcakes. Who knows?
Yeah. And from a technical perspective, I also think Telltale's a bit not the right place because who wants to like think about like the way an action sequence in a Marvel comic plays out, right? Like, you know, they're very fast-paced and could you imagine how that's going to feel watching it at the frame rate of the Walking Dead cutscene?
Oh God.
Like Telltale's engine is not very good from keeping a solid frame rate. And so that's going to look like it didn't look great in The Walking Dead, and Walking Dead is not exactly like an action-heavy thing. Marvel is. Like
Yeah.
once a fight is going to break out, like that's going to be, you know, like Spider-Man swinging around and people flying and shooting laser beams and stuff. Like, if the frame rate's dipping, it's going to really kill the excitement of that moment.
I could argue that it'd be really cool to do it in a series of very quick one frames. Like in one shot, Spider-Man's kicking, and you know it's literally like a comic panel. You go to the next frame, and you got to hit the button to do the QTE. You could really do it and keep the idea of the comic intact in that genre. Will they do it? I doubt it, because honestly, I guess it would kind of appear cheap, but it would still appear interesting to me in terms of aesthetic.
I think Telltale is doing well enough now. I really would like them to invest in a new engine.
Yes, agreed. Same with the Lego games.
Gosh, the Lego games.
I think the Lego games look fine.
You know, the Lego games. For one, I really loved Marvel Lego. It was a very fun game. I completed it 100%. But with playing the other Lego games and you know the past and present, they stick to a very strict formula, which is getting so old that if the IP wasn't so awesome, I wouldn't play it. And it comes down to holding my hand for every single puzzle, even if it's in the beginning of the game and at the end of the game when I've already solved all this similar puzzles. Too many cutscenes that pull you out of the action, and a split screen that is all over the place. The dynamic split screen where like you can move 2 steps in front of the person and the screen will split in like a weird way and cause you to die. Like, they need to get rid of that and add online co-op and try some new things. The IPs are there, Lego is there. It's gonna sell itself, but I really would like for them to kind of branch out a little bit further. They've added full voice work to their stuff now, which I think is good. They're moving in the right direction. But as far as the gameplay goes, I'm like, that's one where I'm like, repetitive is killing you guys. It really is.
Yep.
Yeah, but again, the thing to keep in mind is those games are not necessarily made for you. They're made for kids more than adults. And kids don't mind repetitiveness. In fact, they need repetitive. Keeping simple repetitiveness makes it easier for kids to do it.
Well, I don't mean repetitive in the sense of just repetitive, but I mean like, if your kid has played one of these games, chances are they played all of them, and they know exactly how to solve each and every one of their puzzles. And just because they're a kid doesn't mean
kids don't get bored with that as quickly as adults do.
I don't know. I mean, the fact that it pulls it literally stops when you solve a puzzle. It stops the gameplay. You know, pans over to like a door and shows every little unlocking bit or whatever, and then it pans back over to you and then lets you play again. When you do that like 9 or 10 times a level, you're not playing anymore. You're watching most of the time. And that gets kind of old, especially later in the game when I already know I need to get the gold brick. I don't need this cutscene. And, you know, kids aren't slow, you know what I mean? They can kind of pick up on it after like 10 or 8 levels, you know? I mean, just personally, I think.
Yeah, no, I hear you, but I'm just saying I don't think kids mind that as much as you think. Like, I remember my kid brother, oh my lord, he must have watched Lady and the Tramp easily 100. Like, he would watch Lady and the Tramp, it would end, he would stop the VHS, he would rewind, and play it again immediately.
I can quote
like,
the first
kids,
Ninja Turtles movie because of that.
Yeah, and I want to think about how many times my nieces and nephews have watched Frozen. Like, kids love repetition. Like, when kids like something, they don't mind it. They enjoy the repetition of something. So that's the reason, like, keeping it simple. Like kids aren't bothered by repetition. And I mean, I think back to like older games. Like games always did that trick. Like you'd walk into a room that was a puzzle, and immediately, like you're right. Like the whole like it stops and the camera zooms around the room and shows you all the points, so you kind of understand what you're supposed to do. when you get control back. Like, it's a very old school gaming trick, but it works. It's effective, and especially for kids.
The funny thing is the Lego. I mean, you got to think the first Lego game, Star Wars, came out in what, 03, 04
Something
ish.
like that, yeah.
So the kids who started there, they're old. I mean, they're older now. I don't know if that repetition is really going to hold them. I'm sure they're bringing in another generation. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
But,
and that's
are
like,
they though? I mean, because think of the IPs. If they're young now, they're not like Jurassic Park is not going to be as big to them as it is for us. You know,
No.
I think that's a selling point.
it will be by later this year.
True.
Well, maybe.
I think
if it does well.
I think it honestly sells to us because we're the adults, so we're gonna play it with our kids. But we're like gritting our teeth to play it with them because it's, you know what I mean. It's so much of the same thing. I mean, you could play with your kid with Mario and not experience that type of thing.
That's actually a really good point. Well, now to some extent, yes, with the new Super Mario Brothers, yes, but you look at what like 3D World or 3D Land did, which completely took away that formula, and even Mario Galaxy 2, which again took the same formula, but sort of just contorted it a little bit to give you something that felt completely new. There's a way to do it, and Nintendo's certainly the one to do it because they're just masters at it. Even Zelda, to some extent, Zelda's the same game every single freaking time.
Yeah, exactly.
But whether it's art style or the way Link is controlled or just something, they make Zelda feel new every single time. So yeah, you can do it. The Lego games are just flat out lazy at this point because they're going to get away with it, and they're still going to sell.
I agree. And speaking of that, what have you guys been playing as of late? Like, what games have you guys been jumping into and whatnot?
And
Matt,
Dead
you
Air.
go first. Yeah, my no one's gonna be happy hearing my list.
No,
Really?
this is going to
Yeah.
be fun. No, I just blitzed through Mortal Kombat X and mostly enjoyed that. I'm playing a lot of retro stuff lately
I recently
again.
YouTubed the story mode.
There you go. See, and you found out everything you need to know in that YouTube video without even playing it.
It was an enjoyable B-grade movie.
It was. Yes, it was. There was an interesting tweet, and I had the idea in my head, and then someone tweeted it, and then it looked like I just plagiarized it. But they introduced family members in Mortal Kombat X. So you have like Johnny Cage ripping open Cassie Cage's midsection and peering through and going, "Here's Johnny," and I'm like, "Wow, that is really absurdly, disgustingly horrible."
You know what? I like the idea. I just wish they would have picked a more interesting family.
Yeah, the Cages are not
Yeah,
interesting.
so I was like, oh, really? Like Cage and Sonya Blade were the main, like the family, and we're going to watch that. Ugh.
Just spoilers if anybody hasn't beaten that, which, trust me, you're not missing anything. I enjoyed it. And like you said, it was a B film. It wasn't anything to jump up and down about. I think it was cool for what it was, and the fact that you actually get a somewhat cohesive story from a fighter, because you don't really have that, and I gotta kind of applaud Midway for that, because they're
NetherRealms.
Warner.
I mean,
Midway.
sorry. Yep. It's been a while. NetherRealms.
But they've been doing
Warner
that for a
Brothers.
while. Like they've been doing
Yeah.
that since was it Mortal Kombat versus DC?
Well, they've been doing it since Mortal Kombat 1. There's always been a decent
No,
story.
No. But it was Mortal Kombat versus DC is when they actually inserted a proper storyline into the gameplay. Before there was a story in the sense of there was lore, but there wasn't actually a story mode.
Right. It wasn't like you pick the computer picks your characters for you, and
Yeah, like here there is a linear progression story that they tell throughout the time that you are playing it. Where before it was, each character had their background, and when you win the game, you get to read a little bit about their prologue, epilogue.
Right.
Yeah, like,
And to be clear, we did just complain about the Lego games being repetitive, and yes, Warner has done this for like 6 games now. They're just good at it, and they do disguise
it's still
well.
it's still the best story mode I've seen in a fighting game.
By
Well,
far.
yeah, because
In fact,
it
it's
works.
still kind of the only story mode I've seen in a fighting game.
Yeah. And
Like, no one's even tried copying them yet, which I don't understand, because
Dead
they
or
should.
Alive 5 did, to an extent. A little bit.
But it was a Dead or Alive game, so yeah.
I love DOA.
Yeah, but it's lore.
The thing with Mortal Kombat, and I said this on Twitter, and Kenny had replied to me, is we've had like I think about 6 games that do this story mode now, and throughout every cinematic, they always have to put the first player on the left side of the screen.
It's pretty cool.
Every single time, the choreography is consistent in thinking, okay, where are we going to put these characters, and how are we going to get them to the left side of the screen? And it is so much fun to watch it happen, because sometimes it's really subtle. Maybe there's a slide move, or they duck under a clothesline, because they usually start on the right. And it's just brilliant choreography. It really is ingenious the way they figure it out. Total credit to them.
Yeah, there was only one, and I think it was because there was it was in between fights with Sub-Zero where they actually put you on the other side. But yeah, it's really cool, and I think that the difference between Mortal Kombat or NetherRealms doing this sort of thing multiple times, and everyone giving it a pass, and something like Lego, is that it's not mediocre to start with, so it's okay. Like this is what when I have a problem with people saying that, oh, you copy this guy or you copy that. Is it working? Does it work? Like the language works for this game, right? So then do it until you find something
That's a good
better.
way to put it. Yeah, the language of it is a really good way to put it.
Yeah, like when you think of a shooter, you think of like, okay, so the right trigger shoots, or A jumps for the most part. There's some odd ones here or there, but for the most part, the controls are the same on a normal controller. You're not gonna go like, oh, he copied me because left trigger aims down down the sights. No, it's the language works. People already understand it from other games. We're gonna keep it in. And so like when people complained about Dying Light or some other games, they're like, oh, they have the combat from Batman, or they have the parkour.
I guarantee you that they did not say that about Dying Light.
Well, obviously. They have something from something else, and it's like,
yeah,
like
Shadow of Mordor is a great example. Everyone said that copied Assassin's Creed and Batman, but it's like, who cares? It did a really good job of it.
Exactly.
Like it was a really well executed.
Did you know how to play right away? Well, then stop complaining. Like.
Yeah, is it like, do you know how to play? Yes. Was it good? Was it fun? Yes. Then what's the problem?
There's something to be said here about creativity involved, not just in the gameplay. By the way, I didn't like Shadows of Mordor, but beside the point. And something of Mortal Kombat compared to the Lego games, because Mortal Kombat is really creative in how it creates its own world. It's continuing from the last game. It's basically remaking Mortal Kombat 3 and 4, and doing it in a really interesting way, because it's giving you a new world.
They Star Trek Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, it's a really cool way of doing it.
It's a clever reboot.
And its production design, if that's what we're going to call it, is amazing. The stage design is so unique, whereas the Lego games are literally the exact same thing. And there's no necessarily creativity because they're just pulling from something that's already been made. So it's not unique enough to really separate it. If I play Batman or I play Star Wars, I'm playing the same exact game. And it's really not interesting, whereas Mortal Kombat is giving me enough fresh things and new to expand not only its own world, but the gameplay itself. I love it. Just defending that point, by the way.
Yeah, it's essentially, Mortal Kombat is just, the Mario Kart of fighting games.
Well, to some extent. I mean, obviously they've way enhanced it from where it was. The funny
I mean in the last year, like how you said, like since they've introduced that story mode into it.
Right,
so, I mean,
right.
Ones. Like it's completely different from what it originally was.
Right.
But since they've started the current formula that they've been repeating now for a while is, the Mario Kart, but they make sure each one is still enjoyable.
Yeah, agreed. And there's something really interesting in how they have taken it and really morphed it to involve every single facet of Mortal Kombat prior, because X even has like the different forms of the fighters, and it still works, which is taken from like Armageddon and all of the kind of the muddy middle part of the series that no one really remembers. But they involve every single aspect of Mortal Kombat up to that point and kind of throw it all in, and it works. It's really...
Yeah, I'm a big fan of what they've been doing, and I hope they continue. What else have I played? Well, obviously playing Mortal Kombat. This is one of the rare times where I don't have a review title, so I've been kind of going backwards and playing stuff. So I just got Halo, the collection for Xbox One, and jumping into Halo 4 because I haven't played it. I just never.
Ooh, yeah, you gotta play.
I never had time. Excuse me, to play it. Actually, there's a lot of games I haven't played. So I'm jumping into that with my wife, and it's really fun so far. I didn't think it was gonna be as refreshing, I guess, because I played Halo to death, but it's really good so far. I've also been playing Smite still, and what else? What else have I played? Oh, Rayman Legends, which I think is built for me because I love platformers, and yeah, it's that game is freaking awesome, like just great.
Is that the first one or the
That's
second
the,
one?
it's the second one.
Second one. Okay, yeah, that one's fantastic. The music levels are some of the best I've ever played in a platformer.
Yeah, and the artwork is just amazing. Like Ubisoft did an excellent job with that engine, where they can literally draw something in and then have it animate and be in the game. Moments later, like it's one of the best. Like it rivals Mario all day.
It does. It supersedes Mario in a couple ways too.
Yeah, which is shocking because I'm a huge Mario fan. I'm like, I can't believe I said that, but it's great. I wish more companies would kind of do that in the sense of where if you're gonna make a game, which is one thing that I really dislike about the indie scene right now, is that they're just making copies of games instead of making their own game in the vein of something else. Like, okay, you want a Metroid style game? Make Axiom Verge. Don't make Metroid. I've played that, and to be honest, that game is going to be better than yours anyways. Why would you do that? Like, nostalgia isn't going to save you if I don't have nostalgia for your particular game. You know what I mean?
To be fair, Axiom Verge pretty much is Metroid. Even down to like the design of like the world and the blocks. It was my main complaint with Axiom Verge is that it's this indie game written by one person entirely, and it's exactly the same as Metroid. And it just had no personality or identity, which is its biggest fault. And it's a shame because it's really, really good.
Really?
I think that
6 out of
genre
10.
gets a that genre gets a pass too easily, I think, is part of the problem. But that's another argument altogether.
I thought it was kind of good. Outside of just being a clone, it didn't seem like a clone to me. But granted, I haven't played a Metroid in years. Thanks a lot, Nintendo. So, that could be why. But Elon, what have you been playing? Or you're not telling us?
No, I'll tell you. It's just not. I played Destiny again.
What?
Oh God! No.
I knew that though. I knew that was coming. They roped you in with the new DLC, right?
No, it's not. I mean, all right. So I was in Japan for a little while for my honeymoon, and just got back about 2 weeks ago. And so I wasn't playing any games while I was there. So I got back and I just kind of want to settle into something. Like, I don't have any new games at the moment sitting on my stack, so nothing to really go through. Although I do, funny enough, I have Stick of Truth, but just the idea of starting a really long RPG, I never get the encouragement. Is it? I've heard like 40 hours.
Oh, no, I almost 100%ed it in like maybe 15 to 20.
Oh, okay. Cool. That's encouraging. That might help me a bit, because the idea of starting those long games, I can't even I don't even want to turn the game on.
Yep, game link
to
is
get started.
That's another episode.
Yeah. But so I've started. So I just kind of immediately sunk into the things that I'm familiar with. So I play a bit of League of Legends. I play a little bit of Dota 2 and a little bit of Destiny. That's my holy trinity these days, it seems. So Destiny, the new expansion details did help a little bit, because at least it's kind of an encouragement. So I don't know if you guys know, but basically there's a upgrade system where they're basically fixing the dumb stuff they did with the last DLC,
right,
and making it much smarter and easier for you to upgrade. And also they're making it possible for you to upgrade your older weapons to the high-end level of the new DLC, of where the content will be at, which is really good, because the issue that the last DLC had was a lot of your weapons and gear immediately became redundant because it was just underleveled. So allowing you to do that. So that's now encouraged me to go back and kind of try and collect some of the guns that I didn't bother collecting, because I was thinking, they're older guns, what's the point? But now that I can upgrade them, I'm kind of keen to go back and try and get them now.
Okay, cool.
Help me.
It's one of those things where I know the shooting, the basic mechanic of shooting is really fun in that game. I can't do it. I just can't. It just, I feel like it's the equivalent of cutting myself at this point if I go back into that game. I can't do it. So props to you, and like I said,
It's the only way I feel alive.
oh God.
I just want to feel something. No, but, um,
Oh man.
I am curious to see how this new DLC, like this DLC, I think is going to be a big deal for Bungie though, like because it's very much going to be a kind of a make it or break it thing for Destiny. I think you're like, because the last DLC, I think for the majority of people was quite underwhelming, and I would assume a lot of their audience has dropped off at this point, and they'll come back for the next DLC if they've pre-bought it. But like this is the thing, like the first two DLCs you could pre-buy. So I've prepaid for it, so I'll play it because I paid for it already. But after that, if this one's not good, I will probably not buy the next content pack that they try to sell. Because they've proven to me they can't carry the game in the direction that I'm interested in.
Because by then Destiny 2 will be out and you'll be sucked into that one.
Well, Destiny, yeah, well, no, I mean, like, Destiny 2 will be next year at the earliest. It probably will be next year, like September-ish, if I had to guess. And again, well, depending on what they show for it. But there's the thing, I would go into Destiny 2 way more cautiously.
Yes.
Like, I don't trust them now
No.
to make the right decisions and to make that game what I would like it to be.
Yeah, and because I was gonna say I can't even trust what they show because what they showed at E3 is not what I'm experiencing when I play it. not at all. So, I like I said, I will when it comes out, I'll ask you how is it, and
Yeah.
we'll have that conversation.
Yeah.
Just like Borderlands, I can't do it anymore. No.
Yeah, I was done with Borderlands like partway through 2.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Well, this has been an awesome cast, and I just want to throw out some information for everybody listening. You can definitely follow us on Twitter. You can follow the site at U_F_G. You can follow me at KennyUFG. It's pretty easy to spell and whatnot. Elon, what's your Twitter?
At AYLON133.
Awesome.
So just AYLON133.
And Matt with the awesome name at the end.
Yes, the incredibly complicated Matt _Paprocki.
Yes, it's
Might want to spell it.
Paprocki, which most
There we
people
go.
put a Y on the end of it, and they are wrong. It's Polish people get it right.
it's an awesome name
Okay.
though. But yeah, you can definitely you can catch this show obviously and others like it on YouTube. At United Front Gaming, the website United Front Gaming. You can follow us at our websites. Let's see. Is there any housekeeping notes? We have some reviews going up pretty soon. We have. Actually, I don't have the list in front of me, so you're just gonna have to go to the site and check it out. It's been a long day. It's been a long day.
Did you guys see the Mad Max trailer?
I did. It looks good.
That actually looked kind of good. Yeah.
It's really good. In the open worldness, which is something that has been scaring me as of late, looked really interesting. It didn't look boring traveling from one place to the next. And then combining with the car mechanics and whatnot, it seems like what Rage could have been if it was like blown up to something awesome. Though I liked Rage.
It's like so if id weren't making it.
There you go. There, no knocks on id because they're great. They're great.
Are they?
Well, they have been. I mean, yeah.
When? Like, no. What do you mean they have been? They were.
Yeah, they were.
I would say they haven't been for a really long
Well,
time.
they only put out like 3 games in like the last however
Yeah.
many years.
And how many of those were great?
What'd you think of Doom 3?
The answer's none.
What'd you think of Doom 3? Was that
I think it was good. I think it was good, not great.
not great? Okay.
That was 2 generations ago. We're going that far back?
Well, that's those are the last 3 games they made. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying I don't think id are that great. Keep in mind, like id, like again, as you said, 2 generations ago, like the developer that id was then is not the developer they would be today. Like
No.
they wouldn't even have the same staff for the most part.
It's like saying Rare's the same they were. No.
Oh gosh, Rare
Yeah.
is like, yeah, I don't even.
Even Lionhead at this point is pointless because
Yeah, but funny enough, they might be better off.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I can agree.
That that guy, man.
Yeah, yeah, he's not going to be hyping their games
Zach.
to death and then under-delivering. So,
That guy.
well,
We had that discussion, to be clear, just no one ever heard it.
yeah,
Just throwing
because
that
so hopefully,
Yeah.
hopefully we can. I think we should do this though. I think we should do this again with Matt, since we've had 3 other podcasts that didn't turn out well. Um, we should definitely do it again because I think there's a lot of give and take there. Whereas me and Alon usually just agree. I think there's been like twice we disagree, which is weird because it's totally opposite on Twitter.
I know.
But yeah, definitely follow us on Twitter. Let us know if you have any questions or any topics that you want us to talk about. We'll definitely discuss them. And I think that's it. Thanks for joining us and have a great night.